Let's return to our lead story this morning. 75 tower blocks in 26 English local authorities have now failed fire safety tests following the Grenfell Tower tragedy. Hospitals and schools have also been asked to carry out checks. And last night, the government urged private landlords to check cladding and insulation too. Well, let's talk to a couple of people who may be affected by this in a moment. Anne Lyons from the National Association of Head Teachers. First of all, Diane Tate lives with her young daughter on the Riverside Dean complex in Newcastle. And Diane, I think you're worried, aren't you, about your building potentially not meeting basic fire safety standards?
Yes, we're very worried. There's 38 tower blocks in Newcastle and there's different issues with all of them, but many don't have smoke detectors. They've got bin chutes, many of which aren't covered over, which is against regulations. There's no sprinklers. A lot of them have cladding, which Newcastle City Council has said that they're not going to test. We're very, very worried.
Why is it? Do you know? Do you understand why Newcastle have said that they don't believe that your tower is one of those that needs to be tested? Have they given an explanation?
They've just said it's not the same as the Grenfell Tower, but you know, it has an airspace and a layer of insulation and then a cover on top. So why aren't they testing it? It should be tested. They can't just say it's not the same.
Now, the company actually, I think, responsible for managing your building, is it Your Homes Newcastle? They've said that they actually will test the cladding on the building as a precautionary measure. Does that give you some reassurance?
It doesn't, because the leader of the council gave a statement last week saying that he's testing 5 blocks in the city. There are 38 tower blocks in this city, and not all of them have cladding, but a lot of them do. And the fact that other things in the tower blocks don't meet regulations, the Riverside Dean complex is 5 tower blocks, and they're all identical. And the front door of every single flat has a 15mm gap underneath it. That is against fire regulations.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happened in Camden, isn't it? Cladding, OK, was maybe the red flag that alerted people to the fact that they ought to go in and check out what conditions were like inside, but then they found all sorts of other issues as well. Have you had fire safety wardens round checking out those kinds of things?
We've had nothing. They posted letters through our doors that said we had fire doors, we had compartmentalisation, we had self-opening windows in stairwells and smoke detectors, and all of these things are absolutely not true. The letter also said no children live in these blocks. A lot of the issues on this letter were outright lies, and also on this letter was your cladding is safe. So how are we supposed to believe that?
Well, they tell a different version of events to the one you're telling us here. And we'll try and get a more specific response to those allegations if we can a bit later here on 5 Live. Have you had, as residents, have you come together? Have you had meetings about this?
We have. We've got a meeting at 12 o'clock today, and we're going to speak at the full council meeting tomorrow night. OK. Thank
you so much, Diane. Let me say what Your Homes Newcastle says then. They say 5 of our 38 blocks have had cladding on the ground and first floors only. However, it's not the same material as that used on Grenfell Towers. Their cladding doesn't use this aluminium composite, which is currently of concern, but they've sent a sample for testing anyway, so they can provide tenants with absolute assurance that they're safe. They've also told us that their insulation was fire resistant as well, but clearly there are still concerns amongst